Welcome to the 2025 season preview for the Philadelphia Phillies here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Sunday afternoon. Great day out there for some baseball. Hopefully you guys are enjoying watching some spring training baseball out there. NBA has a couple of good games out there anyway. But MLB is getting going here. Spring training is underway. Opening day is just a few weeks away. And so today we wanted to wrap up our 2025 season previews. Phillies are we're doing right now. We'll do the Nationals, White Sox, and then we'll finish up with the Texas Rangers tonight at 7 o'clock. Be sure to check out that video. We'll have a lot of great information for you guys in that special. Now, Philadelphia has had a great run of success recently. However, they failed to conquer the mountain, to climb the mountain all the way to the mountaintop and plant their flag. For the Phillies, this is a team that really disappointed in 2023 after getting bounced in the NLCS by a very talented Arizona Diamondbacks team. However, the Phillies were the prohibitive favorites in there. They were the favorites to win the World Series that year and ultimately fell flat on their face in that series. Ultimately, they just couldn't perform at the level that is expected of their players. So they certainly have an expensive roster. That's why they didn't do much this offseason to help kind of supplement this roster. There was some rumblings this offseason that Dave Dombrowski was not going to sit idly by and he was going to shake up this roster. But when you look a lot closer at their roster construction, the finances involved didn't really allow that to happen. So we'll get into those and more here in just a moment. But let's look at the season in review for the 2024 Philadelphia Phillies to understand where they may finish in 2025. Now, the Phillies last year won the NL East. They were once again a very good team. The regular season is not a problem for this Philadelphia team. They have a lot of talent. Their pitching staff is one of the best in the game. I wouldn't say the best anymore, or at least in that top three. I would say probably top five. The Philadelphia Phillies are still in that range. They have a lot of really high-end talent. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, among others. And it's just about getting that cream to rise to the top. Last year, they got off to a poor start with Trey Turner. He kind of turned it around a little bit, but he still finished well beneath his career average as far as WAR. He only finished with like a 3 WAR, not anywhere near the level of impact they were expecting out of that signing, and yet they still win the NL East. Tells you how talented this team really is. But then you look a little bit further here. Braves, they only finished 6 games behind them. Mets, same thing. This is a division that has a couple of other teams in there that are going to play very good baseball this year. So where are they going to have to improve for the 2025 season in order to accomplish their goals? Well, let's look at it. Their depth chart, of course, they have Trey Turner hitting first, shortstop. Kyle Schwarber was their leadoff hitter for a period of time, of course, in recent years. He's hitting in the second spot there as their DH. Bryce Harper has transitioned from a right field role to first base. Alec Boehm has seen his fair share of rumors about him being traded, but currently still on this roster as their third baseman. I'm sure the Phillies would love to get off of Nick Castellanos' money, but he's going to be there in right. Max Kepler figures to be in this outfield pretty regularly out there in left. And then at catcher, they still have JT Realmuto. They're trying to discuss an extension there. We'll see if they can get that one across the finish line. I doubt they get it during the season. Honestly, I wonder if this is a case that goes into free agency and then they try to sign him at that point to more of a number that's more palatable to them long term. Bryson Stott was a good player for them last year. He'll be manning second base. And then in center, you have Brennan Marsh, who is probably going to be in somewhat of a platoon. Their bench, Rafael Marchan, Edmundo Sosa, Buddy Kennedy, and Johan Rojas. But again, looking at this lineup, it's going to be dominated by that top 5, top 6. I would say pretty much the entire lineup should be pretty solid. Look at the WAR column on the far side of the screen over here anyway. You got 4.6 projected for Trey Turner. That's still not as high as I think he should be for this team to really reach the heights that they're looking for, but it's still a far cry from what it was last year at only a 3. Weighted runs created plus at only 117. Trey Turner, an impact player like that, that weighted runs created plus should be significantly higher for the impact they're expecting for the dollars that they're spending on him. Kyle Schwarber, pretty much a bat first guy, more of a power on base percentage guy, never really going to hit for average, it seems like at this point. Weighted runs created plus 127, OPS at 820. Look at that walk rate though, 14.9%. He has a great eye for the strike zone, but he does strike out a fair amount because he is such a patient hitter. Bryce Harper, also a 13% walk rate, a little bit less of a strikeout rate, which is great. Weighted runs created plus 144. That's where your real RBIs are going to come from. Keeping those guys healthy in the lineup and productive during the regular season, this team should be just fine. The question is, how does this team perform once you get to October? And that'll be the bigger question there, because they faltered in 2 straight postseasons now. We'll see if they can accomplish their goals. For the rotation, Zach Wheeler, of course, Cy Young candidate year in and year out. They're expecting about a 5 WAR season, a 3.3 ERA, and 32 games started. I would love to see him get over 200 innings again, but at a certain point, you can't keep counting on him to do those types of things. He's always going to have, each pitcher is human, and they're going to have some issues at some point. Pull a hammy one day or blister on your hand another, whatever the case may be. And they've gotten a lot of great run out of Zach Wheeler, a guy who before this time with the Philadelphia Phillies was a guy who had his fair share of injury issues. And he hasn't really had those issues since he's been in Philadelphia. Of course, you want to hope for the best, but you also have to plan for the worst. So they have a really strong rotation here. Christopher Sanchez, one of the surprises there. Really cheap contract, only 2 years so far of MLB service time. They're expecting around a 3.7 ERA for him in 29 starts. I'd love to see that for him. But look at how many innings they're getting out of their starting staff. That's a lot of innings. Jesus Luzardo, for instance, I think he's only thrown over 100 innings twice in his career, and they're expecting him for 158. I think that's a little bit bullish on what they're expecting out of him. Ranger Suarez, another good starting pitcher, expecting 166. Aaron Nola, 188. Sanchez, like I said, 171 and 200 for Wheeler. I'm expecting some of these starting pitchers not to throw that well for them. I'm expecting them to have some injury issues. So Fangraph seems a little bit high for my projections as far as their pitching staff goes, but I still like the rotation overall. It's a very solid rotation 1 through 4. I don't believe in Jesus Luzardo, unfortunately. You guys have made my thoughts on that one well known. But for me, love Wheeler, and that's where you're really hoping that if you get into a postseason series, he can rise to the occasion, which he has, but the offense goes quiet. Or the offense will be there for a game, and then Ranger Suarez will give up 5 or 6 runs. And it's just been, they have one but never the other. They never have both going into a playoff series and working both in the same game, and that's really been their issue. I think getting to the postseason is going to be the easy part for them. The hard part is going to be performing once you get there, and we'll see if they have solved some of the issues that they've had over the last couple of years. As far as their bullpen, Jordan Romano is now their closer. He was non-tendered a contract by the Toronto Blue Jays anyway, but he'll be solidifying that back end of the bullpen. Kerkering is going to be one of their setup guys along with the former All-Star Matt Strahm. Jose Alvarado is still there. Jose Ruiz, Tanner Banks, Joe Ross. A good middle relief option for them. Long reliever, also has some starting ability there. And Taijuan Walker has found himself into the bullpen for the Philadelphia Phillies. Obviously, a 7.5 ERA last year for Taijuan Walker wasn't going to get it done. Hopefully, they don't need to require his usage in the rotation, but if they do, they at least have that possibility to fall back on. And I don't think he's going to have another terrible year, nearly as bad as what he just had. Looking at this bullpen here, a couple of really great setup guys. That is what they're going to rely on. And Jordan Romano kind of having a bounce-back campaign, see if he can stay healthy as well. And then all the way down at the bottom there, Taijuan Walker, they're expecting a 4.81 ERA. Honestly, that's about accurate. I think that's the one part I think they got right. I don't think he's as bad as he was last year. I also don't think he's a sub-4 ERA guy. But I do think he's somebody who can give you some length out of a bullpen on a day where, say, Aaron Nola gives up 5 runs in 4 innings. And you're down 5-0. There's no reason to run Aaron Nola back out there. Get him some rest. Let him come out. Realize that the game at this point just needs to be coasted until the end. And hopefully your offense might get a few runs. And then if you're still in the game, say 5-3 in the 8th inning, then maybe you go to your A bullpen. But there's a time and a place to utilize those innings and a time and a place to save those innings. And Taijuan Walker, I think, will be a good piece for them out of that bullpen mix. As far as injured players, Weston Wilson, Jose Rodriguez, not too big of issues for them from the injury standpoint. Minor league players, Garrett Stubbs behind the plate might be one player you might recognize that gives them some usage during the year if they have injuries. And of course, one of their top prospects, Eduardo Tate, hopefully will probably be in Double A at some point in the coming year. Cody Clemens had a good role on this club last year. I think he is going to be a minor league player for the most part this year, but could be called up due to injury at some point as well. Christian Arroyo, another player that might come to your mind, another piece that might get some utilization at the big league level. Third base, nobody here of consequence anyway. Shortstop, Aiden Miller, one of their top prospects. Other than that, not much. Outfield, Justin Crawford, one of their top prospects there. Cal Stevenson looks like the guy that might get called up first. Oscar Mercado is another name to keep an eye on there as well. On the pitching side of things for starters, let's see here. Mercado, Mick Abel. Let's see here. Tyler Phillips, Andrew Painter, top prospect there. And a couple other top prospects there. Some decent options for them to fall back on should they need it. Seth Johnson as well. And then, let's see, relievers in their minor league system. Seeing if anybody jumps out to us. Max Lazar, maybe. Devin Sweet doesn't ring a bell. Jose Cuas is one that does come to mind here. Who's claimed off of waivers anyway. But their bullpen looks pretty strong. I don't think they'll be utilizing too many minor leaguers in their bullpen unless they have injury issues. I think their bullpen will be a real strength for them this year. Looking at their top 100 prospects, they do have 4 of them this year. Heading into the 2025 season, Andrew Painter, the one in the top 10, comes in at number 8 according to MLB.com. I'm expecting him to be up at the big league level late in the season, but not before then. Like I mentioned, Aiden Miller, one of their top prospects, Justin Crawford, Eduardo Tate. These are pieces that could be used to save themselves some money if they really were to try to add somebody in free agency this offseason. Ultimately, it looks like they're going to stick with the roster that they have, and maybe, if things work out for them, those negative assets will turn into at least neutral assets for them. More than likely, though, once we get to the end of the year in free agency next year or in this coming off season, we'll have some renewed discussion about what they should do with Nick Castellanos' deal. At that point, it'll only have 1 year left on that contract. Same thing for Taijuan Walker. Then maybe the cost to get rid of those 2 contracts and save yourself some money becomes a lot easier to send those deals out and attach only 1 major prospect as to a couple of them that would really deplete your prospect pool. But again, Dave Dombrowski does not care about prospects. That's why I was a little bit surprised they didn't try to get creative with this roster, offload some salary, and bring in some talent. For instance, there was rumors about an Alec Boehm trade to the Oakland A's last year for Mason Miller, or this past offseason for Mason Miller. Obviously, the A's said no because Miller has significantly greater value than that of Boehm. But it kind of gives you a mindset of where this club is at. They're itchy. They're anxious to get where they want to go. And Alec Boehm had some not so kind words that led people to believe that he'd be the odd man out there in Philadelphia. Words about the fan base, words about the direction of the team and his role on the team, and led a lot of us to believe that Alec Boehm was going to see his way out of Philadelphia there, that he wasn't ingratiating himself into that clubhouse anymore with the comments he was making. Luckily, he shut up and finally was able to stay with this roster, and they decided to hold on to him. I think he's a very good option for this lineup as well. Looking at what they have to work with, Alec Boehm is still a very key piece to this lineup. He's still going to be hitting 4th in this lineup behind Bryce Harper. That's a valuable piece to have. Offensively, weighted runs created plus 113. Sure, you'd love to have a closer, but they were able to do it a little bit cheaper by doing after Romano. Walk rate is around a 7. Strikeout rate is very good. Best in the entire lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies at only 15%. So he does bring value offensively, and defensively he's a solid player over there at third. I wouldn't say he's the best I've ever seen, but I would say he can at least hold the position down. So I think if you did trade him away, you'd had to have made the decision this offseason to bring in Alex Bregman, and that didn't happen. So they've chosen to go a very curious route to me in free agency and in trade this offseason, and we'll see if it works out, if it pays dividends or not. Max Kepler, their one big free agent addition on the offensive side of things. Hopefully he gives some time off to Nick Castellanos, who I think was overworked last year. Part of the reason why his numbers were down is they really didn't have anybody else who could even do the job. Now with the platoon options that they have in the outfield, now they can possibly give Castellanos, say, 10 to 20 games off this year, where he didn't have that ability to last year, and hopefully his bat, as a result, will pick up with those results. But overall, a good team overall. Let's look at their payroll, though, as you go into the 2025 season. Last year, they were at 248. Right now, they're at 288. And that's, with all these big contracts, Zach Wheeler, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, all above $20 million per season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys making north of $20 million per season on guaranteed deals. And Zach Wheeler's making double that $20 million at 44. And he's worth 42 anyway, and he's worth every single penny of that contract. He signed a 3-year extension worth $126 million that starts this season and runs through the 27 season. Free agents next year, they have a little bit of money coming off the books. JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Max Kepler, who they just signed, Romano, who they just signed, and then, of course, Joe Ross down here. A couple of club options for Stram and Alvarado. They could free up some money, but again, they're spending another $20 million next year on Castellanos, another $18 million on Taijuan Walker. If they could just offload those two salaries next season, even if they ate the $40 million on them this year, if they are able to trade them elsewhere and attach a prospect or two, they could use that $38 million and add another significant piece to this ball club. I think they would prefer to do that route. Looking at their overall salary going into the 25 season, they are over the top threshold for the luxury tax calculations. They're projected at around $307 million as far as a luxury tax payroll. So they will be paying the biggest tax with the biggest penalty. I would imagine they're going to try to dip underneath that top threshold at the very least during the season. So do not be surprised if they offload somebody who's making some coin this year, as they will have to solve that issue. Going into 26, they have 185 commitments in guarantees already. Calculate another $30 million on top of that for arbitration, gives them about $30 million to play with before they hit the first level of that luxury tax threshold. And then, of course, as you go on, you see the money kind of keep going down. Every year they'll have a little bit more to spend in free agency. This is a team that needs to unclog its roster from a financial standpoint first. Once they do, then this team will be a very active team once again in free agency. Wins of the offseason for Philadelphia, for me, I like the signing of Max Kepler. I think that's probably the biggest, most significant move they made outside of Jordan Romano to the back end of that bullpen. Miss for this offseason, probably not adding another jolt to this lineup or to the bullpen or to the rotation. I think that this needed a shake up that clubhouse a little bit. Get the negative the negative feelings in this clubhouse out of there. And just hopefully go into 25 feeling positive. Right now, if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, what did you do? You added Max Kepler. You added Jesus Luzardo, who I think was a mistake this offseason. But other than that, there's nothing else here that leads to you to believe that things are going to get better. And for $307 million, you're expecting World Series or bust, honestly. For $307 million, you want more return on your investment. You want to see this team not only get to the World Series, but win it. And the last 2 years, they've failed in the postseason. They've disappointed. And now this year, the third year in a row, they'll have this big of a salary or this big of financial commitment. I mean, they have a lot of money invested in this ball club, and it's time they actually turn it into playoff success. Welcome in, D-Rod. Appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Ray, $307 million is not even to not even have a top 3 World Series odds is crazy. To some degree, I'll agree with that one. D-Rod, the current Phillies is what makes Dombrowski an overrated GM. He's good, but he comes in after the previous GM does the heavy lifting first. To some degree, I'll agree with you there, D-Rod. Dombrowski is not a GM that is there to build your organization through draft and development and prospects and those kinds of things. He's a GM that comes in and tries to push the pedal down and get you a World Series. Now, there's a place for both types of GMs, absolutely. You don't want to be a one-trick pony, but Dombrowski, as he's gotten older, doesn't really care about that draft and develop part of the game anymore. At one point, he was fairly good at it. If I remember correctly, with the Miami Marlins for a period of time, he was pretty decent at that. But looking at the Philadelphia Phillies here, this is not a draft and develop team. This is a team that's ready to win in 25, and they didn't really shake up the clubhouse like we were expecting. So we'll see if they can solve those issues. As far as an overrated GM, I think he's done a pretty good job. I will say this is the first time that I have questions about his decision making this offseason, because to me, I would have shaken up this clubhouse. I would have found a way to go about things a little bit differently. I would have not made the trade for Jesus Luzardo first and foremost. I don't like what you sent out for the Marlins side of things. I don't like what you're getting in return. I just don't think the return on investment is worth it for them, and they could have used that trade piece in another deal for a better player. But again, this team is going to have to do it with internal improvements to really get to where they want to go. Holes on this roster to me, I mean, the lineup is pretty solid. Their bench could use a bat, I suppose. Rotation, pretty solid as well, except for Jesus Luzardo, in my opinion. But to me, just offloading some salary would have at least allowed them this offseason to go after, an Alex Bregman type of player. Since they didn't do that and they didn't trade away Alec Boehm, their hole on this roster, to me, probably lies somewhere in the back half of that pitching staff, the bench bat, or some type of a bullpen arm. There's a couple of guys out there that kind of fit the description of all these. We'll go ahead and do a trade here in just a moment here. Hank, welcome in. No matter what, there's always an upside. Sports Network, thank you, my friend. Phil's, Bravos, Mets will be a fun year. Poor Marlins, true. Don't forget about the Nationals. They'll be the next team we do here in just a moment. They're a good team, an ascending team that's not exactly expected to win a wild card spot this year, but next year they're going to spend very, very heavily in free agency. And remember, they work very well with Scott Boras as far as getting free agent deals done. Expect the Nationals to be a team to be reckoned with for the next decade here with the talent that they have coming. They're looking very good. D-Rod, Dombrowski came into Boston when they were ready to win. Exactly. All he did was sign players to expensive contracts. Not a difficult thing to do. And he made the trade for Chris Sale, by the way. I will say that he's gotten the job done as far as the goal that he has. He's looking to win a World Series and by and large has found really good ways to get there, or at least get close to it, and has had some instances of the best form of success with winning the World Series. I will say that when it doesn't work out, he literally leaves the cupboards bare, and that's why we see teams that he's left behind not have much in the way of a future, and that's why he kind of says, peace, we tried, and leaves it to another GM to fix it up. So I will say that he's pretty much exclusively now focused on the winning at the big league level type of stuff rather than, winning at the big league level in 5 years type of stuff. Nats are the future, sir. I'm telling you, agreed, Mike? Absolutely. The Nationals are going to be a very good team. And like I said, we'll do that season preview here in just a few minutes as well. But overall, let's go ahead and do some trades here for the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll start with just offloading some salaries here. And, to do it this offseason, I think would be very costly. A team like the Marlins, we just did the season preview for them. If you're looking to offload some salary, I don't think they're looking to take on big or long-term deals. So you're talking one-year contracts that expire after the end of the year, or guys that have a 2-year deal, but you're going to have to pay through the nose to get rid of them. So say you're looking to offload Taijuan Walker, and hopefully you can recapture some value there down there in Miami. If he does, so be it. Great. If not, oh well, you tried. If you're looking to bring him in, that's negative 33 value. What would it take just to offset that contract for this year? Aiden Miller gets you in the range, but again, the Marlins are looking for very cheap pieces and position players. So Tate, there's one top 100 guy would have to go out the door. We'll scroll down here. We'll do in Moises Chen. No, we won't. We'll do Burkholder. How close are we there? Another 10 mil. Crawford would be a piece. I'm going to go ahead and do Moises Chase, even though I think they would prefer more of a position player. You're giving up 3 pieces to offload the money of Taijuan Walker. Just goes to show you how bad those contracts really are. Would I do this if I was Philadelphia, if I was just getting cash considerations back? Probably not. Would I do this if I was the Marlins? I'm taking on a lot of money. I really don't like taking future money as well, and I'm doing both, but I'm getting a top 100 guy and 2 decent prospects as well. It'd be borderline for me if I was the Miami Marlins. But for Philadelphia, this would offload some salary to where they could use that flexibility this year and next. But this year's free agent spending is basically over. The only reason why to trade this money away now is to dip underneath the luxury tax and to possibly have some wiggle room to make an addition at some point before the trade deadline. But again, this would be the type of deal that would get the Marlins out of trouble with the MLBPA, and for the Phillies to save themselves some future money. Not a bad deal overall. Let's go ahead and do a different one. Let's go ahead and clear the trade here once again. Let's do a trade for a piece that they could actually have and help them out. So let's say we go with Let's say we go with the Angels. Now, this is going to be a trade deadline deal, so before anybody worries, it's going to be a trade deadline deal. Say Jordan Romano doesn't exactly have it as a closer, right? What options do you have? Kenley Jansen would be one option I think would be a nice piece. So that would be the one I'm kind of thinking of here. But again, $10 million. You're going to have to offload some of that deal to some other team. Another player I think would be a very nice piece for them would be a Ben Joyce. But look at that value. You'd have to give up some nice piece to go back the other way. Let's say they decide to do both, right? What would the Phillies have to do to really upgrade their bullpen? A strong bullpen for them, but this would be a nice piece to kind of solidify that ninth inning role. You're looking around, what was it, 15 value? So say you include to the Angels, they need some starting pitching, so you send out Chase. There's 9. You need another 5-ish mil. Burkhalter could get you there, but we'll go with Escobar. And we'll go with Brian Rincon, a 20-year-old shortstop prospect. Would I do this trade if I was the Angels? Yes. Basically, you're turning 1 year of Kenley Jansen and 4.5 years anyway of Ben Joyce into a possible starting pitcher. And then 2 position players who are very young. We have no idea what their future could hold, but could be nice pieces down the line for you. Would I do this trade? It'd be close. The reason why I say it would be close is because Ben Joyce does have real value for the Angels. I would wonder if they would want to go somewhere a little bit different as far as the valuation there. But for the Phillies, this would really solidify that back into the bullpen. And even if Jesus Luzardo can't give you the innings that you're hoping for, maybe Taijuan Walker ends up being your 5th starter as the year goes along. You don't want him to go deep into games, and one way to do that would be to really strengthen the back half of your bullpen. That way you can allow those starters to go a little bit shorter in those games. I would really love this if I was a Phillies fan. But let's go ahead and post it to the trade board, and we'll do one more trade before we kind of wrap up the Phillies discussion here. For the Phillies, let's say they want to add another bench bat, somebody who could really help them out in a playoff series. So we're looking for guys who have a track record of success in the postseason. And one player that springs to mind for me instantly is the Pittsburgh Pirates and Tommy Pham. Remember, he just signed this offseason to a 1-year deal, so the Pirates would have to be out of playoff positioning in order for this to happen. But let's say they go about it and bring in Tommy Pham. Let me see if I can get a MLB player here first. Tommy Pham, negative 0.3, not much value, but he could be a nice bench bat to that outfield mix. Adam Frazier, as far as the infield, I don't think he'd be an upgrade over Sosa. Maybe they could do a backup catcher, but I doubt it. Let's see, just seeing if anything else just jumps out and says, hey, get me. Tim Meza, maybe. Could give you a kind of a low-end middle relief option there. That's not too bad. So those would be 2 guys that could help you in a postseason situation. It's not going to cost a lot to get this deal done. You could even trade a 24-year-old starting pitcher who's probably not going to make a difference for them down the line. But there's your trade. Validate it, post it. And that would be guys that could help you, kind of around the periphery of this ball club that are not going to cost a whole lot to a Philadelphia team that's already strapped for cash right now as they're above that top luxury tax threshold. So not a bad option to improve the team, both bigs and small, and to kind of offload some salaries as well. Interesting ways that the Phillies could kind of get creative during the season to help out their roster. All right, as far as where will they finish in 25, well, let's look again where they finished last year. Phillies, to me, they had a great year last year for the regular season. They had their ups and downs offensively. They really struggled in the postseason for the 2nd straight year to really live up to that expectation. So for me, I think 95 wins is fairly accurate for what they did last year, and I think it's pretty close to what they'll do this year. I think they'll probably finish maybe a game better or worse, but I'll stick right at that 95 win total once again. However, I think the one team that really is going to jump up that win total with the addition of Juan Soto right now is the New York Mets. I think the Mets are just a really talented team that needs to solve that pitching rotation first and foremost, and I think they will. Once they do that, I think they easily get the division crown. Easily meaning I think they're going to get in the neighborhood of 90, probably 95-ish wins, 96, 97. But I think the Mets are that good where they'll be right at the top of that division along with the Philadelphia Phillies. They're kind of 1A, 1B. They're very, very comparable. I think the Braves are just a half step behind both of those guys because of how much they're going to be relying on young starting pitching at the back half of that rotation. That worries me a lot. Love the addition of Jerks and Profar, but I do have my concerns as far as the back half of that starting rotation there in Atlanta. But the Philadelphia Phillies and New York Mets, take your pick. One wins the division, the other is the first wild card. I think both are really, really strong teams this year out of the NL East. Dodgers, of course, the favorite on the National League side. We'll see if anybody can upset them in a short series in the postseason. Hank, we'll see where they end up after realignment. True, I think they're going to be in a division with Colorado in the AL eventually. I do think MLB will be heading towards realignment here relatively soon, especially when they add these markets that they're looking at, Nashville, Quebec, other markets as well, to add baseball teams. And then they'll have some realignment, and we'll see. Maybe an AL South could be a possibility. Think of what the NFL did as far as the 4-team divisions. We could see something like that on the Major League side of things. And then they'll probably have to change up how they do the playoffs as well. They'd probably have the 4 division winners and then 2 wild cards at that point. But that'd be one way that they could get creative with it. But appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. This is your 2025 season preview for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm going to go ahead and say the Phillies are a very good team, but they ultimately get through the first round of the postseason and then falter before they get to the NLCS. I just don't think they have the juice in that clubhouse right now to really push it over the top. Now, if Trey Turner gets back on track, which I think he will, and they get some positive performances out of Jesus Luzardo, which I don't think they will, maybe they surprise us and maybe get to the NLCS against the Dodgers. But for me, I think they're going to fall just a little bit short of that threshold, and they get bounced before they get there. So overall, I think they're going to have a great 25 regular season, but again, they fall short in October, and then we'll have some serious questions about Dombrowski's future and the future construction of this roster, among other points as well. As far as the roster, some surprises or what we could expect out of this roster. I would expect them to keep this roster pretty much intact unless they find a way to offload some salary. Then they could get very creative in ways they want to structure this lineup, the rotation, etc. As far as any big trades, I think they're out of the market for guys like Tucker and Vladimir Guerrero. I think they would love to be in the market for some of those guys. They just don't have the financial resources to be able to be in on something like that right now. Unless something changes, like trading away Castellanos and Walker, that's a possibility out there as well. As far as the offseason grade, I really don't like that Jesus Luzardo deal. Again, he hasn't pitched over 100 innings except for twice in his career, and I'm not expecting him to this year. I think they should have shaken up this roster, and I'm going to give them a D minus. I really don't like what Philadelphia done. I still think they're a very good team as currently constructed, but there was an opportunity here to change the narrative around this clubhouse. And yes, you're expecting bounce back years from a lot of these guys, but at a certain point, shaking up that clubhouse for after 2 straight postseason failures would really have been the best way to go, in my opinion, to reset expectations, to instill some extra competition already there. Otherwise, this lineup is pretty much set for the foreseeable future. I mean, Trey Turner's going to be there for years. Kyle Schwarber, if he signs an extension, he'll be there for a period of time. Otherwise, they can plug somebody else in there at DH. Bryce Harper ain't going anywhere. Bohm is there for this year and next. Castellanos, same. Kepler for 1 year. Real Muto could be a change there. Stott's going to be there for a period of time. And then Brendan Mosh, a period of time as well. This lineup, has a lot of stalwarts in here, and there's a chance really of shaking things up this offseason. And Dombrowski and company decided, hey, we really can't do that because of the financial situation we're in. I get it, so be it, but that's why it's a D minus. They should have shaken up that room to me, because I think once you get to October, it'll start to creep into their head once again. How are we going to screw the pooch this time? And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when you go into a postseason or go into anything in life, really, and thinking it's going to turn out badly. 9 times out of 10, you're going to manifest it yourself rather than having the issue or having another team beat you on pure their skill over yours. Where you have those issues when that doubt starts to creep in your mind is, hey, now you're starting to beat yourself. You're over pitching. You're swinging too early at the fastball. You're swinging too late at the curveball, and you just really start to form bad habits that way. So we'll see what happens to the Phillies. I still think they're a really solid team. I think they will be in October. The question is, do they win the division or do they get the wild card? I think it's splitting hairs between the two teams. But I would say as far as reaching the NLCS, I think they'd have a little bit tougher climb than the New York Mets. As far as growth and surprises, growth to me, maybe they get a couple of their bench guys to really grow. Bullpen arms, maybe an arm or two. Get those prospects to continue to develop in the minor leagues. That's where their growth will come from. As far as surprises, maybe they offload some of those bigger salaries. Hopefully they can do something like that, but we shall see. Dombrowski for sale with prospect he didn't develop again. No, that's hard to do. Yeah, I mean, he did that as well when he was with Boston. the trade for Chris Sale. Welcome in, Jonathan. Appreciate you joining us once again. Doing the 2025 season preview for the Philadelphia Phillies. We're about to do the Miami Marlins here, or not the Miami Marlins, the Washington Nationals here in just a moment. We've done almost every team now. We are down to our final 4 clubs that will be getting done this afternoon. Right now, we're doing the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll do the Washington Nationals, Chicago White Sox, and then tonight at 7 o'clock. I know a lot of you guys are Rangers fans in our chat since I am based in Texas. And we'll have that one for you guys tonight at 7. So be sure to turn on your notifications. Follow us on X and at Upside SN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. I know YouTube usually caps you guys at 3 notifications a day. We've already done, this is our 4th live today so far. So that probably would have already exhausted your notifications. So turn on your alerts. Follow us on those other platforms. That way when we do go live, you will be notified. All right. As far as ceiling for this ball club, I think there's a good chance that they could win the division. Maybe they get to 98 wins. Maybe surprise us and reach the NLCS. If they can do that, maybe they surprise the Los Angeles Dodgers in a short series with their starting pitching. And Bryce Harper, a great playoff performer, and rise to the occasion. And ultimately make it to the World Series. I think that's the best case scenario on the NL side. One of the few teams I think has a chance to get to the World Series out of the National League. But I think the floor for this team is if the bottom falls out for Trey Turner. He has another poor season. Schwarber starts to look old. Same thing for Real Muto. The bench shows its flaws. The starting rotation gets injured for the first time, like a Zach Wheeler. Then you're looking at a team that's a 95-ish win ball club that's going to go all the way down to probably in that 85 to 88 win ball club range. Still in that wild card hunt, but I think that if the worst case happens, they might be one of the first teams looking on the outside looking to get in. And that's kind of your low point. But for me, I still think they're going to be right there with the Mets competing for the division crown. Take your pick, whoever you think wins. But ultimately, I think the Mets probably get the job done there just a little bit better with the addition of Juan Soto. And I think they will add a starting pitcher at some point at the top of the rotation. And we'll see who that option ultimately turns out to be. All right, this has been your 2025 season preview for the Philadelphia Phillies. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. We'll be doing the Washington Nationals here in just a moment, but really do appreciate y'all's support. Thank you so much for enjoying these videos with us, and we'll have these videos kind of shortened up a little bit that will be reposted ahead of opening day as well. So those of you who are not able to watch, all of the preview videos, you guys can get a little bit more direct communication with or direct information from those when we shorten those out and re-release those. But appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be live here in about 10 minutes or 5 minutes here with the Washington Nationals. So be sure to hang around. We'll be back here in just a little bit. Stay safe out there, everybody.